Here we go, you guys. I see people coming in right now. I see Dustin and Chavi and Dalva. Oh my goodness, Dalva's here all the way from Finland. I see Craig, David Jones. Welcome, 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 everybody. Open up your chat window. I can see you're here, but I can't see you. Don't worry. I see Gavin there. See Joanne, Aaron. Let us know where you guys are coming from. So open up your chat window and just type where you're at in the world. Christopher Rice, so good to see you. Are you joining us from Rochester, Minnesota? That's where you live, but are you there right now? Catherine, we see you. Let us know where you guys are coming from. We got Minnesota, Vermont, Seattle, David Jones from Banya and Sauna. David, so excited to see you. Gavin from Charlotte, North Carolina. Alan from Ontario, Canada. Dan, people are showing up from all over the world to hear you wax poetic about Banya and all
This
good
is
things.
this is crazy, man. So exciting.
We're glad to have you, and we're glad to have everybody here. Um, Dalva is saying greetings from Finland and Jonsu. Uh, and I am so excited, Dalva. I'm going to get to be in Finland this later this week. So I'm coming to find you. I'm coming to find you in Finland. Drew's joining us from White Bear Lake, real close to where Dan is. Sarah's in Philly, Rachel from Milwaukee, Alicia from Michigan. Uh, oh my gosh, all over. Eric from Chicago. We got people from all over the place. Denver's represented, San Francisco, Alex Yenny, a brother with another floating sauna. Alex, so glad you're here. So you guys, we got people from all over. And as we get going, I'm gonna do an intro and then you're gonna hear a lot from Dan. But we want to make sure we give all the time to Dan and to dive in on this conversation. And let me just sort of set the table for us. We're talking all things today about warmth beyond heat and exploring the Slavic Banya and Nordic sauna and sort of the differences between those, the synergies from them, their how they sort of come from similar traditions in many ways. We're going to talk a lot about treatments and whisking and plants, and we're going to get to some really, really nerdy cultural depth today. So if you are in the room because you're interested in those things like us, you're geeks like us, you are in the right room. There aren't many rooms where people get to be in rooms to talk about venik and vihta and vasta and all the sort of traditions like this that go in depth. Um, and you're in this room with us today, if you're not watching the recording online on YouTube later, in a digital room. And that digital room for us means we want to interact with you. And we want to interact regular and connected and deeply. And so we invite you to be very active in the chat window. If you have thoughts, type them back in there. If Dan drops this like tweetable quote that you're like, that was amazing, type it in there and thumbs up it. Um, and if you have questions, open up your Q&A window and pop those in there. We're going to answer questions throughout the time. So we aren't going to save all the time till the end. As we go throughout the conversation today, we're going to answer questions. So whatever you have, any topic when it comes to banya, sauna, depth of experience, treatments, plants, your favorite plants in there, all those things. Feel free to drop those in the Q&A window. We want you guys sort of leaning in with us, not sitting back and watching. This is sitting around the coffee table together, having a deep, impactful conversation. Um, all that to say, Lindsay's going to send over a poll right now to interact the interactive environment. We're going to sort of kick it off right away. You're going to get a poll in front of you, and that's just going to ask, who are you? And why are you interested in this, specifically around the business of sauna? Maybe you're somebody who's supporting as an enthusiast. I think this room might have a few more enthusiasts because we're doing a deep dive, not on the business things, but at the cultural things. Maybe you're somebody who's exploring starting a sauna business in some form or some fashion. You're in the process of opening doors. Or like a few people in the room right here, maybe you got the doors open. I see Nils from Vermont here. Uh, and Nils got a few doors open. I know that. I know Nils is one of the best old school log sauna builders in North America. Uh, and we got a bunch of other folks I know who have their doors open as well. So let us know where you're at and where you come from in this world. And as you're doing that, I do want to introduce in a bit of a more formal way, my dear friend, Dan Bondarenko. Dan's the owner of the Banya House based out of Prior Lake, Minnesota. first generation immigrant from Riga, Latvia. And Dan, when I sort of think about you in this broader world, you're truly one of these people who understands the depths of these cultural traditions, and you're trying in so many ways to introduce them to as many people as you can. And in some ways, I feel like I'm doing the same thing with my Finnish sauna cultural heritage that I was given
Mhm.
as a little boy from grandma and grandpa, and you're doing the same thing with uh, the Slavic Banya traditions. And I love getting to be with you. I love getting to be in Banyas with you. You've done amazing things with treatments around me and with me in spaces. And I couldn't think of anybody better uh, to be a part of this conversation to sort of lead and guide us on the depth of how we understand these cultural things. So, Dan, truly, thank you for being here today. It's such a joy to get to hang out with you.
Absolutely. And Justin, thank you so much for having me on here. It's a privilege to be here representing the Banya world to some extent here in the States. And it's an honor to talk about it and share just my personal story behind it and the culture that we grew up around here in the States regarding Banya and just the Slavic culture in general. Um,
So, let's dive in. I mean, all the intros aside,
yeah.
you're great. We're ready. The team's here. They're chatting in where they're from, and they want to hear more. Let's first, Dan, define Banya. What are sort of the contours of Banya, and
Yeah.
maybe how that differs from things like sauna or hammam, words that people have heard around these traditions. And then I want to hear your background on how you got into this and some of the family tradition and all that. But give us the big, broad definition.
Yeah.
What is Banya when you say that?
Okay, so we define Banya in two different ways. There's Banya as the noun, which in our language is equivalent to sauna. It could be referred both ways. If you say sauna or Banya, it can refer the same thing, which is more inclined towards Finnish style sauna. Higher heat, lower humidity, but still not the absence of steam or loilu on the rocks. And Banya as the verb is a little bit different. It's more inclined towards the spa realm, I would say, than simply a sauna realm. It is a different microclimate, so we're doing lower temperature, higher humidity. The number that is shot for is the number 200, which means it's the combination of the temperature and the percentage of humidity that should not exceed 200 or 100 in Celsius. Um, sorry, 120 in Celsius. And the probably internal differences that I would say that exist in the Banya realm versus the sauna realm is lower benches, wider benches, a lot more laying space, so you're horizontal more than you are vertical. And then there's variations depending on how the build is presented, if it's for a group session or if it's presented for more on the individual basis. So with that, like my background in Banya, I grew up in the States. I was born in Riga, Latvia, and as the USSR fell apart, my parents came to the States, and we got visas to come out here, and that was kind of our, I would say, a fresh start into a new world. And there, I was just the background there is I was very saturated in the Slavic culture to begin with. My parents were very adamant about keeping us preserved would be the term, very culturally preserved. So that was pretty much all we knew and hung out with as Slavic people, probably until the age of 5 or so, when we started moving to a different part of town. So until then, it was everything Slavic, everything Russian speaking to us. That was our native tongue. And from there, like our Banya world was always a part of our life, our Banya or sauna world, where it was a something that my parents grew up with, where they had Banya or sauna. It was more on a need to basis rather than a relaxing, this is my leisure time. Considering what life was like back then was very different. Where Saturdays is your day to recoup, relax, and physically take a bath. So that would be kind of where the concept originally came from in my parents' eyes. And here stateside, it was something we did understanding the cleanse, right? So for us, it was had a lot to do with bodily cleansing and socializing. Huge component of Banya for us is simply to socialize. Like for instance, we don't understand the concept of 90-minute sauna sessions. For us, that is like that's round one. That's we just came in and started to warm up. So very different in that sense. Where when we sauna for hours at a time, as we've experienced with you, Justin. We don't sit around for a brief moment. It's an occasion. It's not a pit stop. It's an occasion.
Yeah,
Um,
and I just to riff on that with you, I think it's fun to see the cultural traditions
mhm.
who approach these things less like doses
Yeah.
and more like, this is how you connect with other humans, right? I Everything you
Mhm.
just described there is so similar to the ways in which I sort of spent time with family growing up. We didn't sauna for minutes, we sounded for a morning or an afternoon or an evening together, or it was
Mhm.
warm the whole day and family sort of went in and out throughout many portions of the day. And when you're with you, at some point you're also having food. You're doing
Yeah.
it so long that you get hungry and you need to recharge and you need to eat afterwards or maybe even during as a part of that. And so these traditions are a bit more expansive, I think, than the North
Mhm.
American mind usually thinks about them. And as we're in this current moment in culture, new folks are discovering it both for business and elsewhere. And they're
Mhm.
discovering these traditions and saying, how do I turn the tables? How do I get people in and out? How do I get more guests and customers?
Mhm.
And you're sort of pushing back and saying, you know what? Also, there's a version of this where you just keep welcoming people and you fill the house. And the public banya would be a good example of that, where they almost always have a restaurant next in them, and you're spending a lot of time there. So
Yeah.
I love those contours, Dan. When you sort of talk about this at home, get one layer deeper for me of what were the actual spaces which you went to Banya? You've
Ooh.
opened a business around
Mhm.
this now, but what did it look like to do Banya with family growing up?
Okay, so really cool niche. So one of the Slavic community here in Minnesota was very tight around our church, and oddly enough, the pastor of the original Slavic church that we know of in Minnesota, he had a property. I think the name of the town is St. Francis, or just north of St. Francis, and he had a built pond on the property that the church helped put together next to his house. And the first thing he did was he built a sauna. That sauna became the place where I spent a lot of my childhood visiting because we were good friends with the pastor. And then once we moved away, it was annual trips with either family or the boys or conferences. We would go up there, and this gentleman would have a sauna there. So that would be our to go to place as far as individuals we knew with sauna. So that was the, so to say, cheap version for us to go visit a sauna. And then from there on out, probably my late teens into adulthood, Lifetime was the place that I spent a lot of time visiting and getting kicked out at the same time because they wouldn't like our process or our regime, especially in the winter when we're running outside and rolling in the snow and opening their doors and causing alarms to go off. But that was the realm that we lived in the Banya world, in the sauna world. Um, from there, there's a unique experience I had as far as in my sauna to Banya pilgrimage. So we helped volunteer at a rehab facility in the middle of nowhere, Missouri, and this place used the sauna or banya as a means of detoxing, cleansing, releasing unnecessary things from your body. And it would help clean chemicals out of individuals who are coming off of substance abuse and recovering from there. And it was a unique place for us to connect because it was beyond the physical at that point, right? The individual is getting a cleanse both physically and in the spiritual sense, communal sense, they're connecting in ways that was mind blowing. So that was probably one of the pivot points in my sauna banya pilgrimage or evolution, as I like to call it. And that was a place where I really tapped into the nature aspect of it because this sauna was built. It's a standalone facility. It was probably close to 1,000 square feet area, including the changing room, chill room, and hot room. And it was placed on a pivot point of a creek where it was spring fed, and you could see the spring bubbling maybe 40 feet away from the sauna. So it was like everything about it was ideal. Again, middle of nowhere. So when you're out in the sauna in the evening, the stars are shining, glistening against the water, and you're coming out of the hot room just enjoying this pure bliss And that's something that resonated in my soul over this duration of time. And it's something that we've chased, and ultimately where we've been blessed to end up right now with the Banya House, being on a little bit of wilderness retreat where we're able to not only enjoy this, but share it with others.
Oh man, I love it. That sounds so lovely. I think my first experiences with Banya were some big public ones. There's one in
Mhm.
Chicago, the Chicago
Yeah.
Sweat Lodge. It's that public expression where you come in and the heater is like the size of a room in a house. Like it's
Oh,
just
yeah.
it is thousands of pounds of heat.
Hmm.
Um, and there's some questions coming in right now already, and I
Yeah.
think we're going to get to them in a little bit, but we'll get to some construction questions and some how we build these things and how they're different. But I do think just one broader thought around this is the banya is some of the highest heats I've ever experienced. It's
Hmm.
also some of the most sort of soothing, penetrating heats I've ever experienced because there's
Yeah.
so much thermal mass in them. And then when we talk about whisking and microclimates, you're also saying it doesn't always have to be hot. It's always this moment of measuring that and approaching that with how are people going to be in there for those treatments. Dan,
Yep.
before we go to treatment work, talk to me a little bit about your business because this began with family tradition.
Yeah.
And then now you're giving it to the world. What does that look like today? And give us just a little bit about Banya House, Minnesota, and kind of what you're doing in that sense.
Oh man, I want to start off with an illustration that comes to mind. I think a lot of us read the book The Giver in elementary school, I think it is, if I remember correctly. And there's a unique component in the book where the main character, I don't remember his name, the main character is trying to figure out what his role is, right? And kind of finding his place in this realm that he lives in. And until he figures out that he was isolated, not isolated, set apart, right? And this is your niche and this is what we see you are capable of. I think I went through this piece in my life trying to understand where I am in the sauna world or in the banya world, just because I was enjoying it so much, but I wasn't sure what this is for me, right? It was a lot of just passion that was overflowing. And then when it came to the point where like I started feeling what good heat, good atmosphere, and everything feels like. I think the most logical step at that point was, hey, let me build a trailer and let me put a sauna in it. And that was one of the things that was popping up. And I got creative with my dad being in construction together in his company, and we kind of unfolded and built our trailer from there on. So and when we built the trailer, it was initially just going to be I'm going to rent it out to people, drop it off their house, they're going to use it and take it back. Me being the kind of attached individual I am, it was the first piece of carpentry I ever did in my life. So I got heavily attached to it, and I couldn't fathom letting it somebody else take it, accidentally burn it, uh, damage it, ding it, and everything. So for the first 2 years, I locked it up. I still had the name, I still had the brand, but I did nothing with it. And until we had our sauna to banya evolution, where we kind of changed the internals, the microclimate, what we've been experiencing. And then there was a pivot point where it was like an awakening to me, like, this is something I want to share with people because this is one, it's been bringing me so much relief and joy and excitement and natural high, everything about it, both in community, in the physical realm, the spiritual realm, everything about it was unfolding to me. It was like, we got to show this to people. I got invited by Glenn to go out to Sauna Days, which is right up in your neck of the woods. And we got to participate in the event. And unofficially, we just brought whisks. And I said, I'm just gonna whisk people. And I got an incredible satisfaction out of it, I would say, where I am able to just give this unique experience to individuals, something that's been harboring in me. And I know it's not so exposed in the United States, at least to different cultures here, because we're a big melting pot in the US here. So that was my, I guess we could say, my opening scene was getting out and providing this experience, and it clicked with people. We were told you have to come back next year. We have to experience, and I think year two is when we really connected with you, Justin, out there in sauna days, and we got to sauna and whisk with you in one of your units, and that was incredible. And from there on, our business has been just we've just been unfolding, continuing our education, starting up different participating in different academies, getting different certifications to really unfold this whole depth of spa that exists inside the Banya world.
I love it. And I think as somebody who, has grown up with the tradition and is now starting to trying to give it away to as many people as possible, when I hear you say that shift from I thought I had this thing, and now we moved into sort of a more deep understanding of Slavic Banya is truly what we're trying to give to the world, not just some
Mhm.
mobile sauna that I was proud of that I delivered to somebody's front yard.
Yeah,
Um, what I part of what I like about it is it's more truly you. Back to your giver analogy, it's like it is the assignment for you, and you are. When I think about folks who are sort of interested in business here, it's asking them to go even deeper into what is your unique offering to the world, not what the competition is doing down the road, but
yeah.
what is the thing you're trying to do? What are you trying to serve people with? How are you trying to give something that's unique and a differentiator? Um, so I just think it's great. I want to let me hit some questions, and then we're going to get to whisking.
Let's do
Uh,
it.
Christopher says this is going to be a few hours long, right? I think he's meaning this conversation because also that's what Banya should be. And then his question in the specific Q&A window, I love this for you. It's Dan, have you returned to Latvia? And what's the Banya scene like there? So any for you, has that been something where you've been able to go back to the homeland and or have you done the research to say what's it like today in the country?
Oh man, that's a rough question because no, I have not gone back, and I understand a little bit of what's going on in the sauna and banya world in Latvia. It's very close to Lithuania and Estonia in that realm. It's very heavily influenced off the Finnish style of sauna and vihta as well. So it's a little bit different as far as I understand it. The processes are relatively close. There's some academies that we've followed and gain some knowledge from as far as what procedures look like based on their expertise. It's very similar. There's different nuances that get more emboldened that make a bigger accent on one way or the other, like steam and humidity, the types of steam, the layouts in the room, the whisking style that goes on inside the hot room. So those are the things that are a bit different compared to the Slavic tradition. I'm more inclined towards like it would be right now the academies that have the most unique, I would say, spa type experience for Banya are all coming out of Russia at the moment. So there's just a lot of academies that are popping up there where people have been providing knowledge and information and practices for over 40 years. And this is a period for them right now where science is catching up with the cultural nuances that have been passed down from generation to generation based on what goes on in the hot room. So science is catching up. These people are educating themselves. So that where I would say is where most of my information is coming from, as far as what the Slavic Banya world looks like.
Yeah, and I would just add on the sauna world, and there's sort of the broader sense of thermic bathing growing. Um, these are growing all over the world, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes in places where it's really deep in the culture. In Finland, there's been a big resurgence of public sauna. Finland
Yeah,
is the land of saunas where we get that, right? The same is happening in the Banya world. The same is also happening in the US and the UK that have much less around this, and they're discovering it, and it's growing and it's rising. And so very sort
absolutely.
of broadly sort of excited to talk about all those things with folks. Great question, Christopher. Now, Yamil's asking an interesting question, Dan.
Yeah.
Some saunas have signs that say no talking.
Mm-hmm.
How does socializing actually work in Slavic saunas? So let's talk a little bit community, connection,
Yeah.
all those things. We've all probably been in the sauna at the gym that says no throwing water on the rope, rocks, and sometimes maybe no talking. Talk a little bit about that communal nature that is Slavic Banya.
For sure. So the communal aspect of it, I think there's different sessions that you go in that right if you're going into round one, we know there's not going to be no talking in that round. We know people are here. There's a group of us. Like even if we say there's four of us at the banya, we're all connecting. We all just came through our lives, our weeks, and we're decompressing. We're finding our zen in that moment, in that space. So we are still communicating, talking. Once we go deeper into more phases, sessions in the hot room, I think that's where it transitions out of the depth of community aspect, and it becomes okay. My some part of my inner soul has really received some relief, right? I've socialized, connected. that part has gotten. My physical now wants to catch up. So this is a time for maybe my physical to uh, get to home base. And this is where things start quieting down. And then our last session is where I would say where we bring in the veniks and it becomes more of an individual session for the people that are present. It's more people just are inclined to be silent because you're listening to everything at that point. You're listening to the water being poured on the rocks. You're listening to the steam as it flows off the rocks. You're listening to the ruffling of the leaves. You're taking in the aromas. So that moment becomes silent on its own just from what's going on, and people will sense that. It's a unique thing to see as the group just quiets down. The ruffling of the feathers, the ruffling of the leaves start, and it just becomes a just moment of peace and zen and tranquility where people are just savoring it. Nobody wants to interrupt it.
No, I think that's right on. And I think that's true in a lot of the traditions where there are interstitial moments of calm and silence in the middle of that. And then,
Mm-hmm.
Chris is asking a good follow-up. Does no talking come from Germany? And the Aufguss tradition. And
Mm-hmm.
my comment on that, Chris, is I think all of the traditions carry with them some of the norms of culture in that area. So
Yeah.
they're informed by what's like the plants that grow naturally there. They're informed by the people who enter in there. And are they gregarious people that talk a lot? Are they more subdued and quiet people?
Mm-hmm.
Is it a public setting or a private setting? In public sauna, I would say the Finns tend to be more reserved generally. They tend to sort of in public settings be much more quiet and reserved. But in family settings or social settings where they know the folks, it tends to be much more connected. And so saying there's sort of one rule for the no talking, I think it really depends on more often than not what is the cultural background of the folks in there. And
Yeah.
then if that business has created, if it's a public setting, if that business has created some norms or principles on that sauna specifically.
Yeah.
I actually think it is great to have spaces that are sort of removed from talking and connection. If you have like 10 saunas on a property, sure, make one silent. That's really unique. People don't experience that. It's very meditative. But in all sauna experiences, there are often those moments of small, quiet meditation throughout. Um, Now let's shift gears a little bit here, Dan.
Yeah.
Let's talk. We've said a few very deep cultural words I've heard out of your mouth. I've heard venik. I've heard
Mm-hmm.
vita. I said another one, which is vasta. Um, and all that to say is there's a whisking tradition about bringing plants into the sauna that the YMCA does not like. When you bring
No,
in
no,
branches and hit people with them, and there's leaves everywhere getting stuck in the drains, the local Y doesn't understand what's happening.
no.
Um, let's talk about why it happens, why should it happen, and where we can do that well. Let's go deep into the whisking traditions of all this.
Yeah.
Give us kind of the big overview of what it is, and then we can kind of go deep in there.
Okay. So, man, we're gonna try to unpack this in a very short time. All right. So, Venix is the actual item itself. So it's gonna be the whisk, the bundle of oak, birch, maple, linden, eucalyptus, also other herbs and tree branches as well. So the overall gist of the performance, let's say, is going to be convection, circulation, convection, compression, and stimulation. I would say those are the three terms that would describe the process, right? So the Venix themselves just end up being an extension of your hands. So what you're trying to do is you're going to be bringing steam onto the body, the individuals. You're going to be stimulating with the leaves, meaning ruffling it over the body or lightly beating the body with the whisks, or and creating compression, which in the realm of what's going on, you're basically collecting heat, the mass in the whisks, and you're applying that to the body to seep and deepen into the individual before you. Um, how can we?
For folks who have never experienced that, right?
Yeah.
It is truly you're moving more steam in the room by throwing water on the rocks or by dipping the whisks into water and then kind of adding the water onto the rocks from the whisks themselves, moving air in the room, and then almost like a massage, starting to massage the body of the bathers who are in there, oftentimes laying down, but sometimes sitting up and or
Yes.
laying down. Um, and I love those. What were the three again for our notes? The
So stimulation, convection, compression.
Yep. And Emily is saying magical stuff. And
Absolutely.
if you've been in those moments, it truly is. It truly is this tradition of feeling connected to nature, connected to your body, to being cared for and taken care of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Talk a little bit, Dan, about this relationship between the giver and the receiver. You know, sort of
Yeah.
you're a leader. It's a little bit, in my experience, it's less of a show. It's less pageantry, though there is
Hmm.
some, and
Hmm.
it's much more sort of intimately a body worker sort of moment. It feels
Yeah.
more akin to massage
Hmm.
than theater to me.
Hmm.
Talk a little bit about what you're looking for as the guide in the room.
Yeah.
Um, how do you approach that?
Very, very good question. Unique way one Steam Master illustrated it is they asked him does he like being the receiver of the give or the giver? He's like, it's like asking a dad, do you love your daughter or your son more? Like you obviously love both. And there's this unique component to the the whole process, right? So one of my biggest things I tell individuals who ever show up to come receive Banya with me is every visit is unique in itself because you as the receiver are in a different state of mind and I as a giver are in a different state of mind, different state of being. Our weeks, our lives are very different as far as how we approach every session. So I put this expectation on individuals that nothing will be repeated, and if it is, that is great. But otherwise we play with these circumstances and we modify to that. We become very modular. So for instance, if we have, for instance, Justin, you show up to have Banya with me, right? I know the extent of sauna that you go through, how you like it. So you would be what we call a beat kettle or a seasoned kettle, right? You come in and you're able to and willing to accept, and the heat is going to be very different for you versus an individual who's never spent long durations of time in the hot room. It's very important as the giver to be assessing the individual. So you're reading body language, you're reading breath work, you're watching how the individual is moving, adjusting to what you're doing, and you play all that. And it's very important also to ask questions to your individual, keeping it simple so it's a yes or no question, so your individual doesn't have to really try to comprehend the depth of your question. It's really a yes or no for you to gauge, and as the giver, you're just walking them through a process and making adjustments as you go to make it very comfortable, unique, and still very satisfying experience to the individual that's on the bench. So you're really playing with a little bit of nuances as you go through the process. That's just
Yeah,
surface
that's
level. That's
yeah,
how you want to unfold that.
you guys, Dan has done thousands of hours of this practice and we're cramming it into an hour. So we're getting the high level stuff. And it's still great, Dan. I want to go into like the plants, right?
Yeah.
And there's a component here where Dalva is talking about sort of folk traditions. These traditions come from truly millennia of humans discovering what's good for our bodies, both heat and cold and
Hmm.
plants. Um, and and when I think about it, I use two Finnish words there. I said uh, vihta and vasta. Depending on what side of Finland you're in, you might have a different term for that. But functionally,
Yeah.
it's that whisk again.
Yeah.
Usually branches, often harvested early summer, right around midsummer, when all the branches are nice and supple and bendy, and all the leaves are
Hmm.
small, and those get bundled up. And Sarah, you asked a great question. You said, "Hey, where do you get these leaves, especially if you're in an urban area?" You know,
Yeah.
nowadays we can buy them. You can buy the whisks pre-made a lot of times. They come
Yeah.
bundled up and wrapped, and then you put them in your freezer until when you're going to use them. I
Hmm.
encourage people, if they're interested in this, go find a provider online to buy a couple whisks for 30, $40, have them delivered to your house, and just experiment, just have fun.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The Finnish tradition around this is a little more individualized or with the
Hmm.
bathers in the room. It's a little more egalitarian in that way, as
Yeah.
opposed to having sort of a trained almost therapist around these things.
Hmm.
And in the same, it's a deep commitment to let's have the plants do some of that work for us.
Yeah.
This year over midsummer, we did that with my family. We harvested birch boughs at the
Yeah.
cabin. We spent time in there, me and the kids. It's a lot of fun and silliness, right? Where you're sort of doing that and everybody's getting massaged. And then we sort of played with some plants. We got some spruce boughs, we got some cedar boughs. And
Yeah.
so I think one of the things I'll say is often it's the natural plants that are best suited for it in the area that get used.
Yeah.
Now, Dan, what is that like in the sort of Slavic traditions? What are the most common? You mentioned a few of them, but what are the most common plants that sort of get woven into this?
So one of the probably the top three main ones I would say is going to be birch. That's significantly used across many borders. Oak and maple. I want to say those are probably going to be your top three. Eucalyptus also gets bundled and used as a whisk often enough. And linden. Linden is also, I would say, those would be probably the top five that get utilized in the hot room. Um, Gosh, to unfold as far as like how people use them, right? You had stated that people in Finland specifically are more towards the individual, so they're doing it to themselves, right? So the Slavic culture is relatively close to that too, where not only there's not only one designated steam master that is going around and whisking everybody, it's a give and take. Because let's be real, one individual, slapping around six people in the hot room is going to be detrimental to his health unless he takes adequate breaks and they spend the whole day together. Um, but the batons are passed. It is a give and receive for all the individuals. Yes, the performance or the whisking might not be, we'll say, to a certain expertise or to a certain level, but the concept is still there. The whisks are being used on the body. So, like unique things about birch. Birch is a very unique antibacterial that is used. Likewise, is the oak in that sense. Both, not both, but any whisk you use on the body. So when we were talking about the stimulation of the whisks, they're creating blood flow by stimulations of the nervous system in your body. It's also just like a light massage where you're able to use the whisk on the body, and oftentimes we'll just crunch the whisk into the body as well. So you're receiving all these unique tannins and nutritional value that comes off the different whisks. Like oak, I find very soothing and soft texture to the skin afterwards, especially if you apply the whisk and then just do a light scrub down while you're pressing onto the body with the whisk. Like it just leaves a very unique sensation as well as softens the skin due to all this nutritional value that you're releasing. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. If we start talking about the aromas that all these unique plants, herbs, whisks that we bring in. I mean, closing your eyes inside the hot room as all this is being released, and I'm just doing this right now thinking about it. I mean, it puts a smile on my face instantly because it's like it's that little nuance that clicks and your body is able to bring up all these memories related to that scent. And that alone can take people into different realms. Like we'll have guests that show up. They're like, I haven't had Banya in 5 years since we came from Ukraine and you took me home. He's like, the sense I received was like visiting my grandma's sauna in the village far away out of town. Everything took me back there just by that scent alone. So just unique different components like that that help elevate the banya or sauna experience for individuals.
Yeah, I think I just one comment on that. I think in the US, folks who are discovering sauna and banya traditions for the first time, one of their
Mm-hmm.
reactions to it is the question I hear the most is how hot is it?
Yeah.
And it's a question that to me is I understand why, because they're about to do maybe a challenging thing. They've never been in heat like that.
Yeah.
They want it to be at a certain level because they're listening to podcasts that tell them to go really high and challenge yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, when I go to countries like Finland, or when I go to spaces like you're talking about with Slavic culture around these, and there's more tradition around it,
Yeah.
the question that the Finns ask, and I think the same would be true about the Slavics, would be, "How's the lolu?" It's a question of quality. It's how does it feel in there? Is
Yeah.
it good?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you think about this in food, folks who are listening in, we don't ask only how is how hot was the steak cooked at. They
Yeah.
ask what's the cut of meat? Was it you know sautéed well and seared well? Was it marinated in anything? And Dan just described a version of sauna and banya that is so multisensory. It's the feeling of heat, it's the feeling of branches, it's the sounds of bubbling water and steam, it's the smells that bring you back to it.
Yeah.
And I think just as a broad theme here in North America, we're sort of only now, maybe just barely starting to be able to ask those questions of quality, as
Hmm.
opposed to just saying, is it a hot space? Is it hot
Yeah.
and cold? Can I challenge myself in there? I think in the next 5 to 10 years, North America is going to truly come to a level of we're going to have geeks like us and everybody on the call right now who want these experiences at another layer of depth and experience and nuance.
Yeah.
And I hope we can all get there. I think that's why a lot of people are in this room because they see that trajectory and they say, I want to help us get there.
Yeah.
So let's do a couple other quick questions here, and then we have another area to kind of dive into. But Christopher asked a great question. Dan, I want to hear your reaction. I have mine. Who gave the best venik treatment that you've ever had, and what made it so good? Do you have a moment, a standout moment,
Ooh.
Dan? I mean, you've had hundreds of, thousands of them over the years, over the decades.
Yeah.
But is there one? Is there a good moment that sort of jumps out?
So I would say there's two moments that are severely stand out in my memory, or very brightly stand out in my memory. Is my Venic experience at the rehab facility sauna, because of the environment, the people, the connection we had there, and it was, I would say, my first like very in depth, high heat, high humidity. Like it was excruciatingly, painfully pleasing to be in the hot room at those temperatures at the top of the sauna. And we're like at 8 foot ceilings, and I was probably laying in the top 3 feet. So it was insane, really, just in every component. So there, the combination of heat and the cold spring and the way the body reacts with all that and all the different chemicals that are being released, how your body's circuit breaker is going from hot to cold in that realm. And I sat in there for a long time, and I came out euphoric. I was buzzing in the head. And it's kind of like an out of body experience. And then when you come to, you just feel so light and you're just floating. And the other experience was probably Sauna Days 2023. Alex from B Saunas brought his mobile trailer, and it was his playground. So he was like, Dan, lay down. I'm going to give you a whisking. And this man is very humble. He won minor leagues in Russia for whisking competitions. So he is good. And he gave me a probably 35-minute whisking where I was out of my body. I felt like for 15 minutes. I was not there, and I was just floating in the bliss, and it was just incredible. So it would be my two most bright moments as the receiver on that side.
Yeah, and I think you highlight a thing here is, truly some of these experiences do get euphoric. They're the
Yeah,
good drugs in your mind of hot and
yeah,
cold, and they sort of take you out of body. They aren't just sort of a small experience of like, oh,
mhm,
that smells nice in the space. They do really push our bodies and our brains.
yeah.
And there's a lot of dopamine that comes into your brain when you
Oh
do a
yeah,
thing and then you get in cold water. My man, I've had a few lovely ones, and one recently that stands out is I'm a big shout out to Leo at World Spa in Brooklyn and their team there. They've done a great job of taking all these traditions and doing them as culturally accurate as possible, importing wood from Northern Europe to places to sort of have the space really designed well for it.
yeah,
And when we were there, he said, oh, I'm going to have Even take you through the process. And we were in the banya, and he did the treatments, and then he walked us to the cold showers, and he massaged my shoulders and put cold water over my head. And then he brought me and with forceful, strong hands, brought me to the hot shower and made me warm up and brought me back to the cold shower and massaged my scalp and did it. And then we went back in for another round. And I have never felt so rubbery and
yeah.
light and out of body than
Oh
in that.
yes,
And then we had to go sit and eat afterwards because we were sort of so expelled
yeah,
in the best of ways. So if you guys find yourself in New York City, go check out World Spa. If you're in Minnesota,
absolutely.
go find Dan. He'll give you one of those out of body experiences.
Let's do it.
Sarah, Dan, Sarah's asking a good, real quick and little question.
Yeah.
Do you have any sense on how long a whisking session built within a sauna session is? Is it done in the beginning, middle, end? Is it the whole thing? Do
Yeah.
you have a sense, even though time is much more expansive? What's your
Yeah.
thumbnail on that?
So our philosophy on when to receive the venik or vihta or platza in the hot room, and we have set up a 3 session sitting, right? So we have our intro, our middle, our end. I recommend doing whisking at the very end for a couple of reasons. One, it's very exhausting. If, for instance, if someone's going to be giving it to you, that's part of the um, or part of the individuals that are present or whatever, the steam master,
Yep.
right? So it gives them time to warm up. One of the things that I found as a steam master giving whisking, it's very nice to warm up with the individuals, not increasingly hot. I try to stay low to the ground, but warming up because I don't want to create that massive spike to my body if I walk in and do a 20-minute Venik session right off the bat. Because that spike in the body heating up as I'm exerting all this energy, it puts me out of whack. Like I'm not in the best physical state after that round. So I encourage them at the end for that reason, as far as the Steam Master. And for the individual, why it's much, much more beneficial to be doing Venik at the end of your session is your body through depth has been able to warm up where the individual is not exerting so much energy to try to bring that warmth to the core because you've just spent, let's say, 45 minutes to an hour and a half simply warming up, going in and out to whatever degree you would like, where you're comfortable. So when you're going in on that third or so round, your body's already aware of the heat. It's accepted the heat. It's starting to warm up. Your overall core has risen in temperature, and the whisking provides that final hoorah that brings your body temp up, where jumping into the cold sounds like the world's greatest thing, like Glenn would say.
Yep. Absolutely. Hey, some good questions coming in, and then we're going to shift to our final section. Ryan's asking, what's the best way to heat up and store a Vita if you don't
Mm-hmm.
have a water heater attached to your sauna stove? So one of those things, Ryan, that you're adding, I do think it's great when you can often heat up the whisk in warm water. So that's sort of one component there. And then Chavi's asking about sort of talk about more about freezing the leaves, or we usually dry them. So I'm curious about
Mm-hmm.
that. So Dan, talk a little bit about storing them, drying or freezing, and then rehydrating and getting them back up to
Yeah.
temp and back up to usage.
Okay, so a couple of things. So one illustration I portrayed it or tell people as beginners or people using whisks. The whisk has so much nutritional value. So when it comes to brewing your tea, what do you do with the tea bag once you've brewed your tea? Right? You remove it because the leaf is just the leaf. All your nutrition or most of your nutrition is now in the water. So for that reason, we avoid to soak the whisks in warm or hot water for long durations of time because that will just extract most of the nutritional value that the leaves possess. It is still very good to use in the sense of preparing your whisk. So if you have you're going to go in for a whisking session and you're going to be using them, and you've got 15 to 30 minutes and you need that whisk to be hydrated, you do warm water that is not significantly hot to the touch, where you can put your whisks in. They can saturate, they can gain moisture, and then you can use them, and they're very roughly and agile for you in the hot room. So that's uh, one thing I would say. Two, as far as storing whisks, there's different types of storage methods for different types of whisks, right? One thing you don't want to do is you never want to store moist whisks in any way, form, shape, or form. You want to make sure that they can get air dried as much as possible without flash drying them, like bringing them into the hot room when it's 180, 190 degrees and leaving them in there overnight as your sauna dries and whatnot. I would not recommend doing that. At least put them on the floor, bottom benches, somewhere where it's not so hot, because then you just dry up the leaf and it becomes super brittle. And next time you decide to use it, it might just be complete trash and you have to get a new one. As far as freezing whisks go, the pine or the fir, balsam fir, is one that I know for sure of that is highly recommended to freeze. One, because they're best harvested in the wintertime, because that's when they're most I don't quite understand the concept of why they have to be done in the winter, harvested, I mean, but they are stored frozen because they last a lot longer. And when they're stored dry, they become brittle and it just falls apart on you like a Christmas tree would. When you don't water it, it's just going to dry up and fall apart. So those are the ones that I would store and hydrate in those different ways.
Yeah, so dry first and then store as needed. And
Yeah.
I've often seen folks store them in freezers, especially birch early on to sort of lock in some of that and then
Mhm.
use it as is. So
Yeah.
uh Yasmin or Yazaman is asking, do you use the same whisk on multiple people? How does that work with hygiene? Talk a little bit about public settings and how
Yeah.
that could be used. Give a little bit of thoughts there.
So this is something that's a little bit different in our culture, I would say, especially in not so maybe data or Western medicine driven. In our culture, it's there's nothing incredibly negative about using the same whisks on multiple people. You do try to be kosher and rinse them, wash them, run them through hot water. Make sure you rinse it significantly to get the other individual sweat off. For that matter, the leaves themselves carry a lot of the leaves carry antibacterial properties themselves, so they work well being transitioned used on multiple people. We still try to use one whisk for multiple people, and we do our due diligence, washing them, keeping them clean in between rounds to make sure that we're not spreading anything if there is something on an individual. Likewise goes for the benches. We wash everything down in that sense. Yeah, I think that's what I would say with that. And
Yeah.
that's in our understanding of like what called culturally, like same goes where like right now something we're fighting with the health department, right? Is cold tanks, right? Multiple people using a cold tank, you got to drain it, you got to have X amount of cycling, just like pool water and make sure it's chlorinated. It's like it just blows my mind because there is some benefits to uh, how do you put this in a in a unique way for cross contaminating bacteria between individuals because it builds immunity in that sense. It's like they say, how do you help a child build immunity? Let them go play outside in the dirt. Let them get dirty. Let them explore. Let them touch. Like all of that builds immunity in the sense in the body. So same goes for like different bacteria. Obviously, bad stuff on the skin, diseases, disease and everything that can be that's on a whole different page. You're not supposed to share that. That's not supposed to be brought into the hot room. In normal kosher settings, in the hot room with individual skin, no problem. Other deals, it's okay. If there's not that much harm to it that is so detrimental to an individual's health.
So as we land the plane here, Dan, let's talk broadly for some of those folks who are thinking business in here.
Mm-hmm.
How do we build sauna, banya, spa experiences that truly do respect lineage,
Yeah,
land, guest, culture? Like, how do we kind of infuse these things with traditions with folks who don't have last names like you and yours and mine that didn't
yeah.
grow up in these spaces, but see the value and see the need in their communities to open the doors in these ways? What are the ways that you would encourage them to sort of lean in these areas and understand the cultural background?
Definitely. I would probably the biggest thing I would say is look for ways to experience this. That is probably the number one thing that will open up your mind and give you the experience yourself to be able to push off of something. Because seeing it is one thing, watching it on a video, it's very different than being in the setting, experiencing, hearing, scenting. So explore. Good. There's many different places like we talked about, Chicago, World Spa in New York, Kilo in Boston, Loilu in Portland, Oregon, Banya House here in Minnesota, different events like Sauna Days or Banya Fest that we host or are part of, where you can really tap into and get this your first experience and push off from there. Other thing I would say is get a set of whisks, like you had mentioned earlier. Just buy a set of whisks and explore from there. And just as far as respecting lineage, I have this mentality when we use the word ritual. I feel like we take away from the physical and the natural component that exists throughout everything that we're doing because we're making this emphasis on, oh, I have to make this a performance like you were talking about earlier. It's not so much a performance. It has a lot to do with understanding all the components that you are administering. Like God created everything so uniquely perfect that as as you're putting all these things into play, your body is just receiving. And just do the due diligence on the side of the giver, understanding all these components. And that's something we're pushing off with right now is we're trying to provide as much education for individuals as we can through the Banya House for people to be able to just understand these components and be able to relay that to individuals laying on the bench before them or sitting on the bench before them.
Yeah, and I would sort of add on to that, America had a real good skill of McDonald'sification of anything, right? Of taking the cultural thing and making it convenient and packageable and protocolable.
Yeah.
And I think in these ways, our encouragement is to don't do that, but to really learn the tradition, to experience it, to understand it,
Yeah.
and to then spread it, but
Yeah.
not the other way around. Not spread the thing that you've seen the facsimile of and
Yeah.
you try to do from the online video that you saw,
Yeah.
rather sort of learning from people who truly practice this,
Yeah.
who have learned for the thousands of hours. Before you start giving it away, you need to understand it, internalize it. And that might mean working with a designer or builder who understands those things. That might mean working with and going and getting certified. We're seeing more and more Aufguss training, vihta, venik, yurts, and trainings that sort of teach people, hey, here's how to use the venik and vasta. Here's how to
Yeah.
use these components and do that. And so that work is not truly like that's worth it. If you're going to open a business on this, you got to know. Just like if you were going to open a restaurant with an ethnic food from somewhere else, you'd want to either go and experience that food at a high level in that place or work with people who know how to make that food. And it's in
Absolutely.
so many ways, it's a service-based business that's doing the same
Mhm.
type of thing. And sure, you can open a Taco Bell, but it's much more interesting to serve great Mexican food that you've sort of understood how those ingredients get into it and how they should be made. So
Yeah.
it's a little slower, it's a little harder, but at the same time, that's going to create way more impact on your community and your people. Customer service and quality never go out of style in business, you guys. So lean in
Mhm.
on those areas.
Mhm.
Um, Dan, thank you so much for sort of diving into all this together. This is it's truly a well of wisdom and knowledge that you've provided on it. How do people find you? How do people get to you and sort of hear about what you're doing? You've mentioned a couple things, but let's go back through it.
Yeah, let's do it. So banyahouse.mn is our Instagram username. Come find us there. Hit us up on the DMs and the chats. Also, you can visit our Banya Fest page at banyafest.org. You can hit us up with messages and emails through there. Come hang out with us. Join us for the event. Come visit us in Minnesota. You'll get to see not only Justin, but swing out and see us as well.
Absolutely. You guys, such a joy to be with everybody. Thank you for folks who asked questions, who leaned in, who provided comments along the way. We will record that. This has been recorded, and you'll have the recording sent over to you. And if you are somebody who's interested in the business of this, reach out to our team. We design commercial spaces for people all over the country. We coach and consult and train folks to sort of do this at a deep level through our Sound of Business Accelerator program, as well as operational consulting along the way. So if you're interested in this and you want to make it great, let us know. And absolutely go find Dan at a number of these festivals coming up. They're so much fun. They're so connected. It's like going to a family reunion, but everybody loves to sauna and banya, and you're very welcomed in and known. So for folks who are joining in, such a joy to be with you today, and we can't wait to see you on the next one. Thanks again, Dan. We'll see everybody on the next one. Bye
Thanks,
now.
Justin. Take it easy.